The FBI doesn't come to Nigeria for no reason, and when they do, it's because someone crossed the line so hard that local borders no longer mattered. In the last few years, Nigerian nationals have been linked to some of the biggest online scams in modern history that stole hundreds of millions of dollars and shattered lives across the continent. And today we're counting down the top 10 Nigerian scammers who made it onto the FBI's radar. Men whose action triggered international manhunt, extraditions, and the US federal prison sentences. This ranking is strictly based on the documented money involved and not influence, cruelty, or any media hype. This video is for educational and documentary purposes only. We do not support, promote, glorify, or excuse scams, fraud, or criminal activities of any kind. Anyone found guilty deserves to be held fully accountable under the law. And with that, we begin at number 10, the Ogoshi Brothers. At number 10 on our list are the Ogoshi Brothers. They're the last on this ranking not because their crime was small, but because the documented amount involved was just $300. Yet, what brought the FBI to their door wasn't the money. It was a far more terrifying act, one that cost a young life and triggered an international investigation worth far more than any dollar amount. The Ogoshi Brothers operated an online sextortion scheme, posing as a teenage girl on Instagram, and they targeted a 17-year-old American boy, Jordan DeMay, and within hours of their first contact, they gained his trust, obtained his private images, and turned those images into a weapon. And they threatened to expose him, and they demanded he pays them $1,000. And when fear took over, Jordan sent all he could, which was $300. But the payment didn't stop the threats. Instead, they kept on pressuring him to pay more. They were threatening him, and the psychological weight became unbearable. That the only escape Jordan made thought of was death. And that same night, Jordan took his own life. During the conversation, he picked a gun and shot himself in the head. And after his death, investigators discovered that it was an Instagram blackmail, and they traced the Instagram account used in the sextortion. And the digital evidence led across borders, out of the United States and into Lagos, Nigeria. The FBI got involved, and working with the Nigerian authorities, the Ogoshi brothers were arrested, extradited, and charged in the US federal courts. And in 2024, they were sentenced to 17 years in prison, not for stealing millions, but for proving that in digital age, a crime doesn't need a big payout to destroy a life. At number 9 on our list is Abidemi Rufai. Unlike many online scammers, Rufai didn't target individuals directly. He went straight for the bullseye. He targeted the US government during global crisis. In 2020, as COVID-19 shut down businesses across America, the US government rolled out emergency relief programs meant to keep small businesses alive. That system was rushed, and Rufai knew it. Using stolen identities and fraudulent information, Rufai filed multiple applications for the COVID-19 relief funds, money that was meant to help struggling families and small business owners. By the time the scheme was uncovered, over $330,000 had already been paid out. That's over 500 million Nigerian naira, $500 million. But Rufai wasn't just another scammer hiding behind fake names. At the time of his arrest, he was living in Nigeria, and reports claimed that working as a political consultant connected to a local government operation. However, that connection didn't protect him. In 2021, US authorities tracked the transactions, followed the digital trail, and arrested Rufai in Lagos. And he was extradited to the United States to face federal charges in court. Rufai was convicted and sentenced in the US federal courts, all for exploiting a system designed to help people survive the pandemic. Moving on to number 8, Safaya Egemasi. At number 8, we have Safaya Egemasi, a woman in tech, also known as the Tech Queen. Safaya didn't just stumble into crime. She was on the right train but chose the wrong track. Her scam wasn't loud, it wasn't rushed. During her teenage years, Safaya taught herself coding, programming, hacking, software development, all on her own. And over time, she grew. And by 2020, her skills caught the attention of a cyber network operating out of Ghana. And they didn't just see a teenager, they saw her potentials and they leveraged on it. And just at 20 years old, Safaya became the one behind the wheels. Her lifestyle changed fast. Luxury hotels, designer outfits, expensive trips, clothes. Reports even said she visited nearly 30 countries in 1 year. but the money came from a single major operation. The FBI later discovered that Sapphire and her team defrauded a bank in Kentucky of $1.3 million using a phishing scheme. She allegedly built the fake payment portals, perfect copies of real banking platforms, and once victims logged in, their accounts were empty. And to avoid detection, the funds were split across multiple US accounts and later converted into online coin known as Bitcoin, and then moved offshore. And for 3 years, the FBI tracked her quietly while Sapphire traveled the world. And in 2025, she entered the United States, reportedly preparing for another operation. Unknown to her, the FBI has been on her trail. And that's when the FBI arrested her. And today, Sapphire Egbumasi is in US custody awaiting trial. And if convicted, she faces up to 20 years in prison. However, some believe she may be employed and used to expose larger cyber criminals, while others believe justice will take its full course. Either way, the reign of the tech queen is over. And that's on number 8, leading us to number 7. At number 7 on our list is Abiola Kayode. Kayode wasn't chasing victims on Instagram or social media. He played a quieter and far more dangerous game. And this was the business email compromise, the BEC scheme. Between 2015 and 2016, Kayode was part of a sophisticated fraud ring that targeted US companies, not individuals, companies. After hacking a company's account, they studied the conversation, invoices, and the payment schedules. Then they strike. Fake wire transfer instructions were sent, perfectly timed, perfectly worded, directing the companies to send money to accounts controlled by these scammers, and millions disappeared. By the time victims realized something was wrong, the money had already been moved, laundered, and scattered across multiple accounts. And Kayode wasn't just a foot soldier. US prosecutors identified him as a key coordinator, someone who helped manage accounts, receive funds, and move money internationally. In local term, they call it an Azaman. And in 2016, his run ended. Abiola Kayode was arrested in Ghana following a joint international operation. He was extradited to the United States to face federal charges. And in court, prosecutors laid out the digital trails, emails, wire transfer, and the financial records linking him directly to the fraud. Kayode was convicted in the US federal court and sentenced to years in prison for his role in one of the most common and costly cyber crimes affecting American businesses. No flashy lifestyle, no social media fame, just cold, calculated financial crime. And that ending on the list, number 7. Moving on to number 6. Alex Afolabi Ogunshankin, the BEC architect. Alex Ogunshankin was not chasing victims in DM. He was hunting corporations. And as part of his sophisticated business email compromise network, Ogunshankin helped defrauded more than 70 American businesses, causing losses exceeding $6 million. According to the FBI, his role went beyond laundering money. He provided US bank accounts, sent spoof corporate emails, and directly solicited fraudulent wire transfers. Investigators say he learned the system from other Nigerian cyber fraud operators, then began running his own scheme. And in 2019, a US federal grand jury indicted Ogunshankin for conspiracy to commit wire fraud, and the warrant was issued for his arrest. Alex Ogunshankin was eventually tracked and arrested after years on the run. He was extradited to the United States in 2023, and in October 2024, he was sentenced to 45 months in federal prison for wire fraud conspiracy, and after serving his sentence, he faces a supervised release and possible removal from the US. Which moves us to number 5, Nnamdi Olson Benson. At number 5, we have Nnamdi Olson Benson. Again, this was not a street level scam. This was an inside job. Nnamdi Benson was a key player in the sophisticated business email compromise, BEC scheme, that targeted US companies. The operation relied on one thing: trust inside corporate systems only, and emails were compromised. Executives were impersonated, and employees were instructed to wire funds to companies' account. Once the money was moved, it vanished into a web of accounts controlled by the network. According to the US court filings, the scheme caused losses over $6 million to American businesses, and Benson's role was critical. He was the one receiving the stolen funds and coordinating the transfer, and helping them launder the money before alarms could be raised. The FBI followed the financial trail across borders, connected the accounts, and linked Benson directly to the fraud. He was arrested and charged in the United States, and later convicted on counts of wire fraud and money laundering. The level of damage caused earns him the number 5 position. And now we're moving on to number 4. At number 4 we have Obi-Wan Okeke, better known as Invictus OB, a man whose rise and fall reads like a modern cybercrime tragedy. Obi-Wan Okeke was once celebrated on the global stage. He was a Nigerian entrepreneur featured on Forbes Africa 30 Under 30 list in 2016, praised for his work in tech, investment and innovation. His Invictus Group claimed interest in energy, agriculture and technology, and his success made him a symbol of Nigerian entrepreneurial promise. He wasn't hiding in the shadows. He was flaunting success, private jets, luxury cars, motivational speeches, quotes and all that. And a carefully curated image of an African young billionaire. But behind the glossy headlines was a different reality. Between 2015 and 2019, Okeke and his group tricked US companies by breaking into their work emails. They sent fake emails that look real and fooled employees into giving them access to companies' accounts. And once inside, they sent fake payment messages using made-up invoices, and the workers thought the messages were real and sent the money. Over $11 million was sent straight into the accounts controlled by these scammers, and that's around 15 billion Nigerian naira, scammed by one man. After a lengthy investigation, he pleaded guilty to computer fraud and wire fraud charges. And in February 2021, Okeke was sentenced to 10 years in federal prison for his role in the scheme. But that wasn't the end of the story. According to the recent records from the US Federal Bureau of Prisons, as of December 23, 2025, Obi-Wan Okeke was no longer in federal custody, suggesting that he was released early, possibly after serving part of his sentence or under supervised release provisions. As of this update, clarity on the reasons for his release, whether good behavior credit, legal reprieve or other options, has not been independently confirmed. But he went from Forbes cover star to a federal prison inmate, and now a free man facing further legal scrutiny. Obi-Wan Okeke's story is a stark reminder in the digital age that reputation can be engineered, but truth will eventually follow. That's why Invictus OB takes the number 4 spot. Moving over to number 3, Olalekan Jacob Ponle, aka Woodbury. By the time the FBI caught up with Woodbury, he wasn't chasing victims, he was infiltrating companies. While most scammers were busy sending fake love messages or cold emails, Woodbury was operating at a corporate level, targeting law firms, real estate companies and financial institutions. This wasn't guesswork. This wasn't luck. It was a calculated scheme, a level beyond the normal regular business email compromise. And this was done with precision. Woodbury specialized in silently hacking company email systems, studying their internal conversation for weeks and sometimes months, waiting for the exact moment of a large transaction was about to happen. Then he stepped in and then altered the invoice, the payment instructions and details, and then the millions of dollars were redirected without anyone realizing it until it was already gone. No threats, no emotional manipulation, just timing, access and execution. Woodbury was part of an international cybercrime network responsible for tens of billions of dollars, with investigators linking the broader operation to over $100 million in wire fraud. And unlike many scammers on this list, Woodbury flaunted wealth. You could see it all over his page, including his close friend and pal, Hush Puppy. Woodbury didn't just get arrested, he also pleaded guilty. And that mattered. A guilty plea in federal court means one thing: cooperation. And by 2020, Woodbury was extradited to the United States and stood before the federal judge in Illinois, facing charges that carried up to 20 years in prison, massive forfeitures and a long-term surveillance. This wasn't a flashy downfall. There were no viral videos, that broke the internet, no dramatic chase, just intelligence tracking and quiet arrests. Woodbury represents a different class of cybercrime, the kind the FBI prioritizes. Because it doesn't destroy one life at a time, it drains companies, destabilizes institutions, and moves money at a large scale. And that's why he ranks number 3. Not because he was loud, but because he was effective. Going up the ladder is number 2. Emmanuel Wode. Now, this will blow your mind. This was not a scam carried out behind laptop. This was not email, this was not phishing scheme, no hacked account, no online transactions, nothing. This was one of the largest banking frauds in global history. In the late 1990s, he was not a nobody. He was a respected Nigerian businessman, chairman of stock brokerage firm, moving comfortably among airlines. And that was the disguise. Emmanuel orchestrated a fraud so bold that even seasoned investigators struggled to believe it at first. He was able to convince a Brazilian bank, Banco Noroeste, that the Nigerian government was planning to build a brand new international airport in Abuja. But it was a fake airport with fake documents, fake government approvals, fake letters bearing official seal. But the most dangerous part wasn't the paperwork, it was how real it felt. Emmanuel Wode and his associates created layers of legitimacy, meetings, intermediaries, financial projections, and legal assurance until the bank was fully committed and involved. Over time, the Brazilian bank transferred $242 billion. Currently now in Nigerian naira, that's 344 billion naira for an airport that did not exist, would never exist, and was never planned. By the time the truth emerged, the money was gone. The fallout was catastrophic. Banco Noroeste collapsed under the weight of the fraud and was later sold at a loss. International regulators were embarrassed and banking systems were exposed. This was not just theft, it was a financial assassination. Emmanuel Wode made history and was eventually arrested in Nigeria and prosecuted. But here is where the story takes a darker turn. Despite the scale of the crime, he served only a fraction of the sentence handed down. Large portions of the money were never recovered, and within years, reports emerged of Wode returning to wealth and influence. No extradition, no FBI prison, no lifetime behind bars, just silence. That's why Emmanuel Wode ranks number 2. Not because he scammed the most people, but because he scammed an entire bank of a country, the global financial system, and he lived to walk away without the FBI getting a hold of him. Which brings us to number 1, the most visible, the most documented, and the most international haunted Nigerian scammer of the modern era. This is Raymond Olorunwa Abbas, aka Hush Puppy. Before the designer clothes and the flashy cars or Dubai penthouse, Raymond Olorunwa Abbas grew up poor. He has some real photos from his early life, no luxury, no privilege, no safety net, just survival, and that background shaped everything. Hush Puppy didn't enter crime through violence or desperation on the streets. He entered it through calculation, emails, impersonation, and business email compromise. He learned how companies move money, how executives spoke, and how trust worked. And then he weaponized it. By impersonating CEOs and vendors, his network intercepted legitimate corporate transactions and routed millions of dollars into the accounts he controlled. This wasn't a random fraud, it was precision cybercrime. From Dubai, Hush Puppy built an online image designed to shock. Luxury cars, designer brand, private jets, expensive watch, all the flashy lifestyles, while laundering money through the US banks. By 2018, the FBI was already tracking him, and by 2019, they had mapped out his associate, Woodbury. Then came 2020. As COVID-19 crippled the world, the US government rolled billions of dollars in emergency relief funds into circulation. Investigators discovered Hush Puppy's network was positioning itself to exploit the pandemic-era financial system, targeting institutions under pressure and distracted crisis. And that was the final trigger. In June 2020, Dubai police raided his luxury apartment, phone, laptops, crypto wallets, everything. And in US courts, Hush Puppy admitted to involvement in scam totaling over $24 million, including participation in an attempted $100 million fraud from the COVID-19 fund. That's nearly 500 billion Nigerian naira. And in 2022, he was sentenced to 11 years in US federal prison. The man who escaped poverty through crime became the most visible cybercrime conviction of his generation. Not because he was the smartest, but because he was the loudest. Some viewers may wonder why Emmanuel Wode ranks below Hush Puppy, despite scamming $242 million. Well, The ranking considers time and currency value, and the Owode scam occurred in the late 1990s when $1 was worth less than 10 naira, placing his fraud at roughly 150 to 200 billion naira, while Hush Puppy's crime happened around 2020 when $1 was above 400 naira, meaning his scam of over $100 million translates to 400 to 500 billion, nearly half a trillion naira. So based on real world value at the time, Hush Puppy ranks higher. But regardless of rank, a crime is still a crime and all deserve punishment under the law. And with that, the list ends here, but their crimes don't. There's more to this story than what we could cover today, and we've already broken down some of these stories in full details, including Sapphire Egmasi, the Ogoshi brothers, and more. And they're all available right here on this channel. Tell us, which case shocked you the most? And don't forget to subscribe, like, comment, and share. See you next time on Dark Truth Africa.